Today I'm going to tell you about what Mike Stoops can learn from Nick Saban's defense using the same personnel to turn Oklahoma's defense from a liability into a juggernaut. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Today I want to tell you what I learned from watching film and reading a ton about Nick Saban's 3-4 defense, in particular when it was still Kirby Smart's defense, and how Mike Stoops could take those same philosophies and those same principles and put them into Oklahoma's 3-4 defense tomorrow and turn our roster full of talent into world beaters in the Big 12 where we throw the ball around all the time. So one of the things that people bring to me a lot is that Alabama runs a similar version of what Mike Stoops runs, and they want to know, why is Alabama so successful at running their 3-4 and Oklahoma is so unsuccessful at running Mike Stoops' 3-4? Well, it comes down to who your star is. And that's actually what the position is called at Alabama. Yes, Nick Saban claims to run a 3-4 defense, but Alabama calls its standard 3-4 defense regular. But they routinely line up with more than 3 defensive linemen and less than 4 linebackers. And they shut people down. How do they do that? Well, as far back as 2012, Nick Saban has said they rarely line up in their standard regular 3-4 defense, even saying they line up in less than 20% of the time. Most of the time, Alabama attacks offenses with its nickel package. That means there are 5 defensive backs on the field, and sometimes their dime package, which means there are 6 defensive backs on the field. The extra defensive back in their nickel package is called the star. It's actually on the depth chart that way too. The 6th defensive back is called the money. Imagine that. If you get to walk around campus, people say, what position you play? They call my position the money position. They call my position the star position. What position you play? That'd be so money. See what I did there? And these terms are very important because when Saban was working for Bill Belichick, that's what they were called. In the old days, I called the 5th defensive back position the nickel, Saban says. And we never really ran a dime package. He also called the middle linebacker the Mike, the weak side linebacker the Will, and the strong side linebacker the Sam. But when he went to work in Cleveland with Bill Belichick, he found out that everything that Bill does has a purpose. Everything from what you call a blitz to what you call a fire zone front. He says the star is really the Sam. And when you put 6 defensive backs in a game and you sub out the linebacker, he went from calling it a nickel and a dime and a dollar just to keep with the money terms to make it easier on his defense when they called plays. And this is crucial here, and this is what I think Mike can take over from Nick Saban. It's not so important what the position is because the responsibilities of the player at the position are the same. So when they put 4 wideouts on the field, a linebacker would normally have to cover one of those wideouts, but linebackers are not built to cover. So they would put an extra defensive back on the field who has linebacker abilities. He can wrap up, tackle, bring people to the ground, but he can also run with wide receivers. And you might remember from years ago that D. Milner made a name for himself in college football playing that star position, that nickelback position in Nick Saban's defense. Vinny Sonnery, who was a safety, also played the star position. And you might even remember a guy named Clinton Dix that was called a safety, but he played the star in Nick Saban's defense. And the way that they're able to figure out what position these guys play is they teach them multiple roles, and then they figure out which one they're going to excel at most. For me, a star would be Caleb Kelly, a space linebacker who has the ability to wrap up and tackle, but also can run with wide receivers. Robert Barnes could also play a star or a money position. We have the horses. This is why Buki Radley is making noise at Oklahoma, because he's demonstrating he can play corner and safety, but will probably play the nickel in Mike Stoops' defense, or what Nick Saban would call the star. To quote Nick Saban, you can be a really good star and not have the long speed to be a corner. Long speed being that if a guy runs a takeoff on you, you have to run and not get outrun when the ball is in the air. If you have really good quickness and coverability, the slot guy has a hard time beating you in that position because he's closer to the safeties. He's closer to the middle of the field. So a good tackler, a good blitzer, a good cover guy on a slot player, which is different than a good cover guy on an outside player. And the money position is really Mike Stoops' favorite position. It's the hybrid linebacker. He has some of the same responsibilities as a linebacker when defending the run. And Saban says it helps to have that guy a little bigger and a little more physical because he sometimes has to cover a tight end, which is a bigger guy. But he also has to be good enough to do the same things that the star does. We have those guys on the defense right now. They play safety for us primarily, but they also play weak side linebacker in Caleb Kelly. So if Mike Stoops wants to continue to run what he calls a 3-4, maybe turn it into more of a 4-2-5 and steal from Nick Saban. Alright, that's it for me. If you like videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow. Deuces.